Good afternoon, everyone. I hereby call this meeting of the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission to order. This meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. Ms. Silbaugh, do we have a quorum today?
Yes, Chair, we do have a quorum. Participating in the meeting today are yourself as Chair, Vice Chair Lobby, Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke, Commissioners Bob, Rouse, Conklin, and Higgins. And Commissioner Higgins is a non-voting member today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Now we will turn to our safety message from Mr. Braxton. Mr. Braxton?
Thank you, Chair Hart. December brings unique safety challenges due to cold weather. Winter storms can pose safety risks. Being prepared can make all the difference during an unexpected weather event. Everyone should develop a winter emergency response plan. Keep essential backup supplies on hand and maintain a list of local emergency contacts. Ensure everyone knows evacuation and shelter-in-place protocols, and have on-hand emergency kits with non-perishable food, water, and medical supplies. A well-prepared plan keeps everyone informed about necessary precaution and helps to prevent confusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braxton. We will now move on to the minutes from our previous meeting. Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. The minutes of the October 22nd, 2024 meeting were posted for review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? I move approval of the October 22nd minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lobby has seconded the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay.
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 Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. Thank you.
Ms. Silbaugh, you're muted.
Sorry. Yes, the vote is 6 yeas and 0 nays. Therefore, the motion to approve the minutes passes as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. We provide an opportunity for public comment at each of our meetings. To ensure that we recognize all who wish to speak, we provided an opportunity for those who have joined the Zoom meeting to sign up in the chat box. If you wish to speak but did not sign in, please do so now. I would also remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any safety concerns through our website, WMSC.gov, through our social media channels, or by email. Ms. Minor, do we have anyone who's indicated they wish to speak today?
No, Chair Hart. I see no names in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Minor. We will now continue with the next agenda item, which is my remarks. I'll start by welcoming to the WMSC Ms. Tiffany Robinson, who was recently appointed by the Commonwealth of Virginia as an alternate commissioner. Commissioner Robinson is the director for the Virginia Department of Rail and serves as the chair of the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority Board. We look forward to your full participation in all aspects of our work and to your votes when a commissioner from Virginia is unable to attend and vote. So thank you for your willingness to serve in this very important function. Our meeting today includes, we certainly look forward to working with you, so thank you for that. Our meeting today includes updates on the WMSC's ongoing safety oversight activities and the actions that we take on a daily basis to ensure that Metro Rail upholds its safety commitments and strives to continuously improve the safety of its system. Metro Rail's high-level safety commitments are embodied in its Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, and its policies, procedures, and rules flow from that plan. As the state safety oversight agency for Metro Rail, the WMSC is required to review, approve, and oversee Metro Rail's agency safety plan. In that role, we must consider Metro Rail's updated plan and present it for WMSC Commissioner approval before those changes go into effect. Under our program standard and federal regulation, Metro Rail must review its plan at least annually. Later in the meeting, we will consider that annual revision developed by Metro Rail. We oversee WMATA's compliance with the safety commitments in this agency safety plan through investigations, inspections, and audits. And we enforce the requirements in this agency safety plan through issuing findings, which Metro Rail is obligated to propose appropriately designed corrective action plans, and through enforcement actions such as WMSC order. Later in this meeting, we will discuss updates on other strategic activities, including those related to audits, inspections, investigations, corrective action plans, and oversight of Metro Rail's safety certification. Commissioners also will review and vote on 2 resolutions today. In addition to considering for approval the WMATA Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, commissioners will have the opportunity to review and vote on the adoption of the WMSC fiscal year 2024 Independent Financial Annual Audit. Dr. Mayer, do you have any opening remarks?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hart. I do have some updates. Over the last 6 months, I've reported on the WMSC's continuing collaborative efforts to find a solution that aligns with our authority for the subpoena that we issued on April 8th to compel WMATA's compliance with our audit of their fitness for duty and occupational health programs. These efforts were successful in part. However, they did not result in a satisfactory resolution concerning the WMSC's oversight of worker safety. Therefore, on October 31st, 2024, the WMSC filed a petition in the U.S. District Court in the District of Columbia seeking an order compelling Metro Rail to comply with the WMSC subpoena that we issued on April 8th. WMATA has filed an answer with the court on November 25th. Worker safety and occupational health are identified in WMATA's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, and the WMSC is obligated to oversee the safety elements in WMATA's agency safety plan. Turning to roadway worker protection, following the WMSC's assessment that the pace of RWP rule changes has negatively affected WMATA's ability to maintain a safe and mature RWP program, on September 27th, we issued an order requiring that Metro Rail maintain its RWP program as it was written and implemented as of October 1st. Thereafter, Metro Rail may propose an annual revision schedule or an annual schedule by which it intends to revise the RWP program and provide the WMSC with a package of revisions and accompanying training materials for WMSC approval. The intended goal here is to create a predictable revision cycle with exceptions to address safety risks meeting certain conditions and for any changes resulting from WMSC required caps. On October 11, Metro Rail submitted a petition for reconsideration of the RWP order, and as provided in the WMSC's program standard, Section 11, I responded to this petition on October 25th, denying the petition for reconsideration. I explained that in its petition, WMATA failed to persuade me that the WMSC lacks authority to issue or enforce the RWP order. It failed to provide facts that demonstrate that the order is not needed, and it did not provide a viable alternative to the order. As the WMSC program standard allows, Metro Rail submitted a subsequent petition for reconsideration to the WMSC commissioners. And I understand that the commissioners have been evaluating Metro Rail's petition and will respond on or before December 16. Switching to another topic, the WMSC at every level has dedicated significant time, attention, and resources to conducting our in-depth review of WMATA's safety certification work surrounding Metro Rail's efforts to activate automatic train operation, or ATO. Yesterday, the WMSC staff completed its in-depth review of Metro Rail safety certification of the Red Line automatic train operation and return to design speeds project. This led to the WMSC concurring that Metro Rail may now implement automatic train operations and design speeds to train operations on Metro Rail's Red Line. The WMSC will continue its in-depth review of the safety certification of the remainder of the project for the rest of Metro Rail's lines, carrying forward the lessons learned to improve that work. Paul Smith will discuss details surrounding our work and overseeing the activation of ATO later in the meeting, but I want to take a moment to recognize Metro Rail's hard work and its collaborative efforts with the WMSC to reach the important milestone that we arrived at yesterday. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Dr. Meyer?
I see no hands, Chair.
Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Seeing none, we will now move on to our next item, which is audits, with an update from Mr. Davis Raddick. Mr. Raddick?
Thank you, Chair Hart. The WMSC is in the midst of conducting our second triennial cycle of audits, which are aimed at examining Metro Rail's compliance with its Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan and associated commitments and requirements. As Dr. Meyer reported, resolution of the next steps is with the court for the Fitness for Duty and Occupational Health Programs audit, which we expected to start in the spring of 2024. However, the WMSC audit team is ready to proceed with the audit at any time. The WMSC audit of emergency management and life safety programs is complete, and the WMSC is in the process of finishing the draft report of our findings that we anticipate providing to Metrorail this month. Once received, Metrorail has 30 days to review and provide comments to the WMSC. During the exit conference for that audit, we provided Metrorail with 6 preliminary audit findings and the opportunity to provide additional information in response to those. Subsequent to that meeting, Metrorail provided additional information and documents for consideration on October 23rd, 28th, and November 13th. The WMSC has reviewed all the materials provided and is incorporating this information into the draft report. We appreciate Metrorail's contribution and engagement with this audit. Switching to the Control Center and Rail Operations audit, throughout October and November, the WMSC conducted approximately 60 interviews with personnel from rail transportation, technical training and development, facilities maintenance, Metro Transit Police, and safety. The WMSC conducted observations that consisted of rail training courses, rail quality control activities, train operator certification activities, and activities in the control center. We are in the process of reviewing an additional set of documents that was received from Metrorail on December 3rd and resolving any outstanding requests. We have scheduled an exit conference to discuss any preliminary findings for the Control Center and Rail Operations audit with Metrorail in early January. Moving to our upcoming audits, the next audit will be for elevators and escalators, and on November 5th, we sent our audit notification and initial requests for that audit. Metrorail provided documentation based on those requests on December 5th last week, and we are in the process of reviewing these documents and planning out the audit interviews and observation activities. We anticipate conducting those activities beginning in late January and continuing into February of 2025. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Raddick. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Raddick?
I see no hands, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Seeing none, we will now take up the next agenda item, which is corrective action plans. Ms. Rhodes, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Metrorail currently has 92 open caps, which includes 7 roadway worker protection audit caps approved since the last public meeting. There are an additional 6 caps in development that relate exclusively to the roadway worker protection audit issued on July 31st of 2024. The WMSC will provide feedback on these remaining caps in development to Metrorail tomorrow, December 11th. We look forward to the implementation of these corrective action plans to help improve safety for Metrorail personnel on the roadway. As part of Metrorail's implementation of corrective action plans, we receive weekly submissions of activities or milestones that Metrorail has completed. Since the last public meeting, Metrorail has submitted 45 routine deliverables associated with open corrective action plans for WMSC review. I will now turn to another set of milestones, 3 caps that have closed since the last public meeting. Each cap that is closed is a fully implemented safety improvement. First, Cap C0121 was a corrective action plan developed from a finding from the 2021 Fitness for Duty audit. The finding noted that there is not adequate access to, documentation of, or compliance of data for WMATA to assess compliance with its hours of service requirements. To implement this cap, Metrorail created a fatigue management program along with a related compliance monitoring system that extracts data from its existing timekeeping systems. The fatigue management program was approved in labor negotiations this year. Metrorail provided 6 months' worth of reports demonstrating the use of this new data tracking system. Second, Cap C0237 was a corrective action plan developed from a finding from the 2022 Internal Safety Review Program audit. The finding noted that Metrorail does not have a process for and has not conducted a triennial internal safety review of its internal safety review program as required by the WMSC program standard. Metrorail revised its procedures and schedule to include an internal audit of its safety review program. This audit is to be done by a qualified third party to conduct an independent review of Quality's internal safety review program on a triennial basis. And finally, CAPC 0246 was based on a recommendation from the 2023 audit of Metrorail's roadway maintenance machines program, which stated that Metrorail can improve safety and reliability by documenting and formalizing a process for starting and checking equipment on a regular basis that is not being regularly used. Metrorail developed an SOP for long-term storage of roadway maintenance machines, addressing aspects like inspection frequency, vehicle preparation for storage, processes for entering storage, and processes for removal from storage. For each safety improvement, Metrorail is required to sustain that safety improvement for the long term. In the future, the WMSC returns to check on the durability of those safety improvements as part of every oversight program, such as inspections and audits. We appreciate Metrorail's commitment to safety. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Rhodes?
I don't see any hands, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. We will now move to our next agenda item, which is an update on some of the WMSC's latest activities overseeing Metrorail's safety certification process. Paul Smith, WMSC Director, Systems Engineering, will present this item. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Chair Hart. As we've discussed in previous meetings, the underlying philosophy of the safety certification program at Metrorail is to comprehensively identify hazards and evaluate the probability and severity of each hazard, and to mitigate those hazards based on Metrorail's safety risk assessment methodology. Safety certification is performed during the design, construction, testing, and commissioning of a project to prevent these hazards from resulting in safety events affecting Metrorail employees, passengers, equipment, systems, and infrastructure when the project is placed into revenue operation. Performing this safety certification work is Metrorail's responsibility. Similar to our other program areas, the WMSC maintains overall situational awareness of the health of the Metrorail safety certification program by routinely observing WMATA's safety certification review committee actions, observing the functioning of multidisciplinary Metrorail project working groups, and by regularly identifying safety issues to project personnel, as well as the Metrorail safety certification team. In addition, the WMSC also designates projects undergoing safety certification for in-depth review. Once such a designation is communicated to Metrorail, a project designated for WMSC's in-depth review cannot be placed into revenue operation by Metrorail until the WMSC has concurred that Metrorail has completed the safety certification requirements of that project. Once designated for in-depth review, the WMSC, the entire WMSC organization, to include the WMSC commissioners, the WMSC senior leadership, WMSC experts, and other WMSC oversight personnel, devote a significant work effort reviewing project documents, test procedures, results of tests completed, reviewing training programs for impacted personnel, and conducting field observations of various tests, training, and exercises to confirm operational readiness. We use the data and inputs from our inspections, investigations, corrective action plans, and audits to take a comprehensive approach to safety certification oversight. The concurrence we issued yesterday to Metrorail on the automatic train operations on the Red Line and the return to design speed on the Red Line is a culmination of our in-depth review of those two projects. After 4 years of oversight work closely following and evaluating Metrorail's plans to activate ATO, yesterday the WMSC staff completed its in-depth review of both projects, namely activation of automatic train operations and the return to operating Metrorail trains at design speeds on the Red Line. Following the completion of this in-depth review, the WMSC concurred that Metrorail has met its safety certification responsibilities, and Metrorail may now introduce automatic train operations using design speeds on the Red Line. The entire WMSC organization, including the commissioners, the senior leadership team, and the WMSC expert team, contributed to the evaluation of Metrorail's safety certification activities on these projects. Our work has included guiding Metrorail to adopt a systems engineering approach to implement these projects, starting from a concept of operations. And our work has also included observing overnight testing during the last 2 years, reviewing proposed training plans for operations personnel and rail traffic controllers, observing the delivery of training, observing various readiness demonstration activities, and reviewing safety certification materials. The WMSC team routinely communicated with the Metrorail project team and executives on safety issue identification, and was receptive to Metrorail's proposed solutions. Activating ATO operations means that Metrorail trains on the Red Line with a knowledgeable and qualified train operator on board will rely on the fail-safe automated train protection system to accelerate, decelerate, brake, and stop with proper train separation. Turning to the Return to Design Speed project. In the 1970s, when Metrorail was originally designed, built, commissioned, and put into revenue service, the maximum authorized speed allowed on the system was 75 miles an hour. There were also segments of the system that operated at lower speeds. This meant trains could travel up to 75 miles an hour in segments of the Metrorail system. In 1986, following a station overrun at Shady Grove, Metrorail instituted a 59-mile-an-hour maximum speed through rule and by relying on the automatic train supervision system. The automatic train supervision system is not a fail-safe system. In 1996, this reliance led to a fatal crash of a Metrorail train with another stop train at Shady Grove. The train operator died. The NTSB, following its investigation, recommended, amongst other changes, that Metrorail permanently suspend the use of this non-fail-safe system called automatic train supervision to regulate speeds. The WMSC, during its years of in-depth review, advised Metrorail that in order to complete its safety certification and receive our concurrence, it could not rely on this non-fail-safe mode. Metrorail's proposed solution was to return to the design speeds, which would rely on the fail-safe automatic train protection system. Metrorail conducted various validation activities to verify that these design speeds remained safe and that its fleet of rail cars were able to operate within these parameters. As we have done with previous projects for which we have concurred, the WMSC will use its inspections, investigations, and audits program to assess if Metrorail is continuing to adhere to its automatic train control system inspection and maintenance practices, continuing to train its operations personnel to be knowledgeable and qualified to operate in ATO, and that Metrorail continues to conduct these automatic train operations using all applicable operations and safety rules. Metrorail will continue to require train operators who have not yet been qualified to operate in ATO on the Red Line to operate their trains in manual mode. Metrorail has also instituted rules to provide the ultimate discretion to train operators to switch to manual mode if they consider that would be the safest mode of operation when encountering safety conditions such as obstructions on the right-of-way, in low adhesion conditions such as ice, snow, and heavy rains, etc. When encountering roadway workers, train operators will continue to be briefed by an advanced flagger. The advanced flagger will be positioned at the 8-car marker of the station platform in advance of the roadway workers to alert the train operators of personnel ahead and to direct train operators to switch the train to operate in manual mode until they pass the roadway workers. Rail traffic controllers have been trained to stay vigilant, to validate that where roadway workers are present, that train operators are complying with the rule to switch to manual operations. Last, Metro has completed its safety certification work for the return to design speed for Red Line. Through a temporary order, speeds on the remaining lines will continue to be enforced at 59 miles an hour until Metro Rail demonstrates it has completed the safety certification to receive WMSC's concurrence for operating at design speeds on the remaining parts of the system. Work remains to be completed on Metro Rail's safety certification for automatic train operations for the remaining lines as well, before the WMSC can concur that those remaining lines have undergone the safety certification process to allow the use of automatic train operations at design speeds in revenue service. Thank you, Chair Hart. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Smith?
Yes, Chair, Vice Chair Lobby has raised his hand, as has Commissioner Rouse.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Just a couple of questions looking forward. I was interested in the last statements you made about safety certification work that has to be ongoing for the remainder of the Washington Metro system. I understand the red line is the only line that has approval for both ATO and design speed. Can you tell us a little bit about what additional work needs to be done to approve? Well, we'll start with ATO, approve ATO on the rest of the system. What additional steps have to be done for? Is it a new safety certification or additional information or what before we would be in a position to talk about approving ATO for the rest of the Washington Metro system?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Lobby. At this point, the testing for ATO has been completed system-wide. Mainly the things that remain open are the training of personnel for the entire system. So train operators, rail traffic controllers would have already received their training because they cover most of the system anyway, but mainly train operators and ATC mechanics and car maintenance folks need to be trained to interact with the ATO system and to maintain it.
So essentially, we're happy that the ATO system is ready to roll on the balance of the system, provided the operators and others are trained to operate the ATO system on those segments of the Metro system.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that we also have the load ratings for the return to design speed portion that affects the ATO system as well. So we're still waiting for those load ratings for the majority or the rest of the lines other than the red line.
Okay, and what about design speed? What additional work needs to be done to approve design speeds on the rest of the system?
Yeah, that dovetails right into that particular item too. The load ratings for the rest of the bridges and the aerial structures across the rest of the system are still outstanding.
Okay, and speed affects those load ratings?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what about training? Is there any training associated with returning to design speeds?
At this time, there is no other training requirements for the return to design speed project. It's a matter of changing the rule in the rule book for the train operators to allow that higher speed.
So it's essentially a paperwork exercise at this point.
Well, I mean, there's some activities that they have to complete. Of course, the training for ATO is chief among them. But as far as return to design speed, it's the load ratings by the engineering staff.
So let me understand one more thing. Is ATO and design speed, are those two separate activities, or does the ATO have to be in place before the design speed can be raised, or can they be moved independently?
We have pretty much linked them concurrently. So to activate ATO, they need to have the return to design speed done. So they need to happen pretty much at the exact same time.
And that allows them to avoid unduly relying on a non-vital system for life safety purposes.
That's correct. Thank you, Dr. Meyer.
All right, thank you very much.
Commissioner
ahead.
Ramos. Oh,
There are more questions? Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I guess that's me. I just want to say, just express my appreciation for the work that both our team here, WMSC's team, and WMATA has done. I mean, this has been a long talked about subject, and it's certainly a good first step. There's still work to be done, right? And I think we need to take this period and make sure the system is functioning as it's supposed to and intended. But not only the system, the humans using it, right? We've talked about that on a number of occasions, and we've seen historically that the training and qualifications and knowing how to use the tools that you have is just as important. I do firmly believe that it is a tool, right? When it's used correctly, it certainly helps safety in terms of reducing the risk of or probability of an accident over what just a human can do. But it's only if you use it as it's intended and use it correctly. And I think there's been a lot of time by our staff and also at WMATA in trying to get down to the root of that issue. I think all too often, and common parlance, of what we think of automated and automatic systems, it's not that, right? Understanding what the system is and what it isn't is important. It's an automatic operational system. It's not automated. There's a difference there, and it's really an artifact of its era. When really rail control technologies were in their infancy and really limited by what the capability of track circuits could do. And so I think that's important to understand through this. We still need a modern system. I think the public deserve a 21st century control system here soon. And I think that's the right step. I don't want people to say, oh, we've done it, the work's all done, right? No, we still need to move towards that. But this is, like I said, a good first step in getting us and trying to hopefully tamp down some of the more human error type situations, loss of situational awareness, not following procedures, and that type of things, especially as it relates to authorities and limits of authorities for the train routes and keeping safety in that respect. So I do think you guys did an excellent job on both sides in getting this to where it needs to be and continue moving it forward. And I think as we've talked about before, understanding the limitations of what it can and can't do and monitoring both the human aspect and the system aspect and moving us forward is the right next steps. And I wish you luck in that endeavor. And let's keep a close eye on this and hopefully see it rolled out to the rest of the system here soon.
And I guess if with permission, I would just add that, of course, safety certification is the process by which transit properties and their SSOs, but the bulk of the work is done by the transit properties. It's the process that they use to ensure that new systems are fielded as safely as practicable. And this ATO is effectively a new system since it has been unused for so long. So part of the continuing safety certification will be for Metro to monitor, and for us, of course, to monitor the rollout of ATO on the red line. It won't be just an overnight light switch being flipped. It'll be a process, and there will be, like with anything, lessons learned. There may need to be tweaks in procedures. There may need to be other kinds of adjustments or rule book changes. It's hard to predict exactly what might be necessary, and that's one of the very reasons why Metro decided to roll this system out on one line prior to rolling it out on the entire Metro Rail system. And consequently, as part of their ongoing safety certification, Metro Rail is likely to take into consideration changes and adjustments that are needed from this initial phase where ATO is in use on the red line and apply those to its safety certification for the remainder of the Metro Rail system. And we certainly will consider that carefully and be with them every step as this is rolled out so that the project moves as appropriately as safety dictates.
And Chair Commissioner Conklin has raised his hand.
Yes, Commissioner Conklin, please.
Commissioner Conklin, you're still muted.
Thank you. I wanted to second or third those comments. Pleased to see that we've reached this milestone. In our discussions of this and in your description, Mr. Smith, you used a couple terms, vital system and fail safe, which people may have like a common understanding of what those mean. But I've learned through the discussions that we've had that there's actually a highly technical definition of those. And I'm just wondering if you could share for everybody's benefit what those system definitions really mean.
So sure. Thank you, Commissioner Conklin. So for like, we talked about a fail-safe system. So when the system does fail, it always fails to the safer condition. So if that's, to a stop signal or some other way, the system would always fail into that safer mode of operation. As far as the vital system, when we talk about vitality of the system, we talk about the safety critical nature of that system and the kind of how often will that system fail. So the high reliability of that system, and then when it does happen to fail, it would fail safe as well. So that's kind of the two definitions.
I appreciate that. In the previous mode of the ATO process, it didn't have a fail-safe control mechanism. Is that what you described?
No, in previous iterations of ATO, they relied on the ATS system, which is non-fail safe. So they use the ATS system to regulate train speeds in ATO operations, and now they're not going to rely on that any longer.
And the system that they're now going to rely on is a fail-safe system.
The ATP system will be the underlying safety system that governs all ATO as well as manual movement as in current operation as well. So, yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for your work in advancing this.
Thank you, Commissioner Conklin.
I would like to second that and add that since my background is primarily aviation, which is highly automated, I'm very excited to see us reach this point because of the history that automation has in doing and improving so many things. Obviously, it improves safety, and it has had a huge impact when automation well done, and I emphasize well done, has had a huge impact on improving safety, and we anticipate we can see that in this context as well. But not only that, it improves efficiency. For example, the acceleration of the automated acceleration is smoother than manual acceleration, and that reduces energy cost. The braking is smoother than with automation than with manual, and that reduces braking costs. So there are so many ways, so many benefits from automation well done, and that's why I'm very, very excited to see us reach this point. And kudos to all of the hardworking people at WMATA and the hardworking people at the commission working together to bring us to this point. So thank you very much, Paul, for your leadership in that respect.
And Chair, the Vice Chair has raised his hand.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I concur. This return to automatic train operation has been talked about for a long time, and I believe over the last 10 years we've had discussions about what it would look like and what the challenges were, and it's really nice to have this in place. But I do have one question which I don't think we've talked about, and that's the mix between manual operations and ATO operations. Maybe Mr. Smith could tell us how will Washington Metro make sure that their operators will maintain their skill in operating the train manually. We in the past we had situations where trains were almost exclusively operated in automatic train operation, and the main occupation for the operators was making sure the doors closed safely without trapping any riders in the doors. And I believe in the old days they also used to have one day of the week where they would operate manually. How are they going to make sure that the skill sets that operators need to operate these trains are maintained with ATO operations on the horizon?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Lobby. So we've raised this question to WMATA as well. And WMATA's response has been that they believe that there will be enough opportunity throughout a operator's day or scheduled time operating a train that they'll have to be in manual mode. So for instance, if there's severe weather, they'll be in manual mode. If they're taking the train into the yard, they'll be in manual mode. If they're passing roadway workers, they'll be in manual mode. If they're single tracking, they'll be in manual mode. So they believe that there'll be enough opportunity for operators to encounter manual mode operations to maintain their proficiency. At this time, they're open to adjusting that if the need arises, but they think there'll be enough opportunity there for the operators to maintain that proficiency with manual mode operations.
And I assume we're going to be watching that closely. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll have folks out there, investigating and inspecting these trains and attending training classes and verifying that all this is appropriately, scheduled and everything.
And maybe
Yeah,
I'll
I think it's important, that they do have a chance to operate during normal conditions. You don't want to wait for a winter storm to see if the operators still know how to operate the train. I mean, that's a challenging situation, and some of these other situations that you mentioned, these are more unusual, and when we have unusual situations, that's often when we have safety issues associated with it, just because it is out of the norm. So I think that's something we need to look at very closely to make sure that these skills can be maintained and exercised on a regular basis to ensure that when those skills are needed, they're available and they're at the level where we don't have any concerns over safety of train operations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Lobby.
And Commissioner Rouse has raised his hand.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to underscore this point, right? I think it's critical here. Kind of what we talked about is the human aspect of it. It is not an automated people mover, right? It never has the capability of doing that. So I always squirm when we have this discussion about vital and enjoy watching Paul eloquently, try to navigate that question. It's not what we think of in these terms of high safety integrity levels that we have, and I think what people see and think about today, and I want people to, especially the public, to hopefully understand that the human's just as much an important part of that. That's why proper certification, proper training, hours of service, all these things we talked about, they're all part of the same pie here, and you have to have all of them. And to Commissioner Lobby's point, as he knows very well, it's keeping those skills sharp is part of that effort, right? And making sure that they can jump. And just like as Chair Hart has alluded to in terms of aviation, you train and train and train, and you've got all these tools to help reduce the workload on the human, and that's great. But it's a system, and then the two elements have to work together. And I think that's understanding that, again, is part of the challenge of making sure these systems function and work correctly. So you have to use them correctly. And those two have to be in balance, both the human part and the machine part. So just wanted to put that back out there because I think it's an important part that he raised there. And in terms of the other points that were raised by Commissioner Conklin and everything else, is what do we actually have in front of us and what can it do? Right?
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Rouse.
And to emphasize that point, I would let it be known, if you don't already know, you probably do, but aviation has faced this issue about atrophying skills of the operators because of the automation. So they're facing those challenges as we speak. And just to let you know that this is a learning opportunity to see how they've been doing it, because they've been doing it for a long time. And most of the time it works, sometimes it doesn't. And we learned a lot from both the ones that work and the ones that don't. So please feel free to access those, and I can help you with that, to access those industries to put that to work in this context as well.
And I would just point out that this is an issue that we've discussed, as Paul said, with Metro Rail over the time that we've been working on the safety certification, and they have indicated that their operating philosophy is much different from the philosophy that's described in the pages of the 1996 Shady Grove report. That given the rule book requirements, that when there are workers ahead or when there's a need to single track and for a variety of other contingencies, the trains will be operated in manual mode. It's Metro's expectation and ours as well that there will be a variety of opportunities for manual skills practice, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible discussion with regard to both the expertise that we have and our staff expertise in this area, as well as members of the commission. My only comment on it is that, further comment is that, this is a kind of a victorious moment. And, for WMATA and for the system, given where we were from the time some years ago to where we are today. And, at least from my standpoint, I just don't want to use the old adage of snatching victory from where we were before. So to me, it's a victorious moment. And I'm confident that with the level of expertise, both at the commission level as with the staff level, that the proper monitoring and oversight is in place.
Thank you, Commissioner Bob, and thanks to all of you, all of the commissioners for their comments. And are there any more comments before we move on to the next item on the agenda?
I see no other hands.
Okay, congratulations again to everyone involved for a job well done. And Paul, you've been an amazing substantive leader in this area, and thank you for that. So that's been very helpful, and it will benefit all of us.
Thank you, Chair Hart.
Let's move on to the next item, safety event investigations. We will hear presentations on all of the reports and then consider a single motion on them. If we can, if anybody doesn't want to include one of the items in the mix, then if any commissioner wishes to remove a report from the group that we'll consider in a single vote, please indicate that at the end of the presentation on that report. Mr. Quigley, would you start out with the first accident report?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Recently, the WMSC investigations team has been investigating several significant incidents, including an automatic train protection cutout event at Addison Road Station that occurred on November 11th. During this incident, a car maintenance mechanic improperly sealed the automatic train protection, or ATP switch, in the cutout position. A rail vehicle operator identified the issue after departing downtown Largo Station. The train was promptly offloaded and transported to Alexandria Yard without any reported injuries or damage. Another noteworthy event occurred at Glenmont Station on Saturday, November 30th, involving an automatic signal error. The system routed a train toward a platform that was already occupied by another train. Fortunately, the Glenmont terminal supervisor intervened in time to stop the train from proceeding onto the occupied track. Metrorail is currently investigating the root cause of this anomaly, focusing on why the automatic signal system directed the train to the occupied platform rather than the open one. For your consideration and adoption today, we have a derailment, improper roadway worker protection event, 2 red signal overruns, 3 evacuations for life safety reasons, and a serious injury involving a WMATA employee. Investigation Whiskey 0341 relates to an evacuation for life safety that occurred on October 14th, 2023. At 3:29 p.m., the station manager at Arlington Cemetery Station reported to Metro Transit Police Department that 3 individuals had thrown an object described as possibly an explosive onto train 402. The object was suspected to have ignited like fireworks. An MTPD communication specialist notified the Rail Operations Control Center, dispatched MTPD personnel, including explosive ordnance disposal units. The rail traffic controller instructed the train operator of train 402 to hold at Foggy Bottom Station until MTPD personnel arrived. After holding at Foggy Bottom Station for approximately 4 minutes, the train operator, without permission from the control center or MTPD, moved the train, continuing in service with passengers aboard to Farragut West Station. In a written statement regarding this event, the train operator of train 402 stated that increased radio traffic caused them to believe instructions were given to another train was meant for them, leading to the train movement from Foggy Bottom Station to Farragut West Station.
Review of the audio determined that the operator did not repeat back instructions intended for another train operator. The train operator did not identify using their train ID number during their repeat back of instructions. Therefore, the rail traffic controller was unable to identify the mistake. This mistake caused a delay in the MTPD response and extended the time passengers remained aboard the train. Riders were evacuated from the train approximately 24 minutes after the initial report from the station manager at Farragut West Station. MTPD's Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit performed research of train 402. No hazardous objects were found. There were no injuries or damage resulting from this incident. The investigation determined that the incident was caused by riders igniting fireworks aboard the train, creating the perception of a potential explosive threat. In response to the event, the train operator received re-instruction on communication protocols and the importance of adhering to rail traffic controller instructions. I'll pause for any questions on this one.
Yes, Chair. Vice Chair Lobby has his hand raised.
Yes, Vice Chair Lavin.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. On this Farragut West incident, I was struck by the improper radio communication set that we've seen as a theme over and over in many of these accidents or incidents. In this particular case, the operator did not identify his train number, and you know, because of the radio traffic, maybe that's understandable that he heard a communication and thought it was for him when it was for someone else. But isn't the rail traffic controller, isn't he the quality control on these communications? I mean, if someone repeats back an instruction and doesn't identify the train number, should the rail traffic controller consider that a complete communication? Doesn't he have a responsibility to make sure that train IDs and all the information is repeated back exactly so that we avoid some of these issues?
Yeah, that's correct. The operator and the controller kind of share the same responsibility of making sure that the message is clear and concise and that everybody's on the same page.
But the controller himself, you know, he's really the gatekeeper here. You know, if the instruction is repeated back incorrectly, he's the one that knows what the instruction is. He's got it written in front of him, or he's given the instruction. He basically is the one that's the gatekeeper on this, and I would assume that Metro Rail has provided the rail controllers with their responsibility during these communications, and I would hope that it includes not accepting any communication from a train operator that is not complete and accurate as issued. Do they understand that that's a responsibility not to accept this and to ask for a repeat or you know, start the process over, or is that just, you know, something that's understood?
I mean, I think it's just something understood. I can't speak on behalf of this RTC or what they understand, you know, their job responsibilities are, but that is, you know, it is taught in their training and emphasized throughout their training that they are responsible for their communications and making sure that it's directed towards the correct operator or supervisor or anyone that they're talking to.
So let me ask a follow-up question. In our inspections, our oversight of Metro, do we listen to these radio transcripts? And if we do we pick up examples where a rail traffic controller, you know, rejects a message or goes back and asks for another repeat or corrects it? Do we see that interaction going on when we listen to these tapes?
Yes.
Is it common, or is it just every once in a while?
I don't want to say it's common. I would say it's when it usually in events like this, or you know, when there's an incident going on, we hear it, you know, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page when we do go back to listen to events, or we just randomly listen to audio. There are times where you hear controllers, requesting the repeat back again, or requesting, or correcting individuals, with the right information. And actually, it goes both ways. I mean, we've heard operators also, kind of correct controllers as well.
Well, and on the other side of the coin, do we have examples where these corrections aren't made when they should be? And again, how common is that? I really don't have a feeling for it, but we seem to have radio communication issues, readback issues on many of these accident or incident events that we look at, and we also seem to have problems with radio communications in that the radios don't work in particular locations and dead spots. But I think that with the number of issues that we've had here, this may be an area where staff may want to take a closer look, or maybe just do some monitoring of some radio recordings of regular communications to see if both the operators and the controllers understand the seriousness of clear communication on these train movements.
Okay. We'll do that.
And I would note as well that we have a communications audit that will be conducted next year, and that may also be a vehicle in which we could do some of that work.
Well, yeah, tell me about that. What would that include? Monitoring tapes and seeing what's actually going on, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I jumped in to mention it, but it looks like Mr. Raddick, who is actually responsible for the audit, might be better positioned to tell you more about it.
So the communications audit is really just looking at the system level. It's not the communications that are happening over those systems, if that makes sense.
So what audits would cover that? Or do we have an audit that would cover, monitoring these communications and determining whether the radio protocols are being followed, consistently?
The control center and rail operations audit. So there's more to come on that. That audit is still in progress.
Okay. And when you say it's in progress, has it been conducted or started?
Yeah, so we just finished interviews at the end of last month, about 60 interviews. There's some documents that we're still going through, and we can certainly consider looking at radio protocols and to the mix as well.
So you're basically saying that you haven't looked at radio protocols as part of this previously. Is that correct?
We have it for this audit previously, and that's documented in the prior rail operations report. So this one, I expect we will do that on this report as well.
Okay. I just wish that we had a better handle on what's going on with this radio communication and some of the issues that we're seeing. But that's pretty serious when someone's following directions that are not for his train. I mean, that's a single point failure that could result in a very serious accident. And I think we need to better understand what's going on here. Thank you.
To Vice Chair Lauby's point, let me ask, do you have any sense in this specific event whether frequency congestion was a problem that made it difficult to do a read back and to verify the correctness of the communications? Or was that not an issue? Because I know a lot of times when the frequency is so congested, it's difficult to have enough time for a redo, if you will.
That is a common complaint from everyone that's usually involved in these events, is the radio congestion, the radio issues, getting through, trying to, people talking over each other. So that is a common complaint through pretty much all our investigations. When we have events like this, it's congestion, trying to get through when other people are talking. Everyone's kind of have their own requests and don't allow the individuals that are kind of involved in the event to kind of talk first. There's really no priority. I think the control center tries to make announcements, stating that, to kind of clear the airwaves and let people that are involved in an event talk, but that's not always the case. People don't listen.
Well, I just wonder, is anybody looking into the possibility that digital communications might be necessary in order to relieve some of that frequency congestion? Because with digital communications, you can see it in front of you. You can see the whole thing, and if it's correct, you'll know, and if it's not correct, you'll know. And so I'm just wondering, has any attention been paid to that? That's certainly in other industries where frequency congestion is a problem. That one of the things they've looked at is digital communications.
And that certainly has taken shape over many years now in ACARs and other systems. I don't even know what that stands for in aviation. However, I don't know of that being a solution that's been applied in transit rail. I would point out that WMATA's system, radio system, is well, it's in the process of being modernized, but when that modernization is complete, it will be a fully digital system, but it is a digital audio system, not a system that turns messaging into screen prompts and that sort of thing, as has been done in some other modes of transportation. I'll also point out, as long as I happen to be speaking, that the mechanics of how communication is done and percent correct on readback and that sort of stuff is something that when we were certified, it is something that the FTA had spent quite a bit of time on, and that did result in significant improvements, at least in my judgment, to Metro Rail radio communications. So we certainly could take the IOU to take a look at some of the work that was done back at that time and determine whether or not it makes sense to repeat some of those projects or relook at some of that same stuff. Our focus in more recent audits and in those radio coverage issues that have come up in prior investigations and audits has primarily been the performance of the equipment itself.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Any more comments, questions, suggestions regarding Whiskey 0341 before we move to the next one? Thank you for those comments. That was very helpful.
I see no more hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Well, please proceed with Whiskey 0342.
Investigation Whiskey 342 relates to another evacuation for life safety reasons that occurred at DuPont Circle Station on December 18th, 2023, which involved the detection of smoke and required multiple station closures. The Office of Rail Transportation Rail Supervisor reported smoke emitting from interlocking on track number 1 at DuPont Circle Station to the control center. The cause of the smoke was initially unknown, and a rail supervisor noted that it began to dissipate. The Buttons Rail Traffic Controller contacted the Maintenance Operations Control Fan Desk to activate station ventilation. Meanwhile, the radio rail traffic controller instructed the supervisor at the station to evacuate riders, including those aboard train 109, which was stopped on the platform. Emergency responders, including DC Fire and EMS and MTPD, were dispatched to the station. The fire department determined that the cause of the smoke was related to a maintenance issue and departed. The station reopened for service following a track inspection conducted by a test train. However, just 1 minute after reopening, MTPD personnel observed a haze inside the station, prompting a second closure. During this time, a stud bolt that was causing arcing and smoke was removed from the roadway. After another round of inspections, the station reopened again. Within 3 minutes, the operations manager directed a third closure to allow automatic train control personnel to conduct equipment checks. Once test trains confirmed there were no further issues, the station was deemed safe for operation and reopened. The cause of the smoke was determined to be a stub bolt with a negative return, which had begun to arc after coming into contact with rebar in the track invert. This incident demonstrated significant gaps in communication and coordination during the emergency response. Incident Command did not initially use Radio Ops 6, Metro Rail's designated emergency operations channel, as outlined in the Incident Management Framework playbooks. This oversight caused confusion and delayed effective communication. Additionally, an MTPD lieutenant at the station authorized the station's reopening without coordinating with the designated incident commander, further complicating the response. While no injuries or damage were reported, this event highlights the critical need for adherence to communication protocols during emergencies. WMATA required all Archer supervisors to complete a comprehensive refresher training course on incident management framework, procedures, and roles. The training was designed to reinforce the critical responsibilities of Archer supervisors during incidents including effective communication, adherence to standard operating procedures, and ensuring the safety of employees and passengers. I'll stop for any questions.
Chair, Vice Chair Lobby has his hand raised.
Yes, Vice Chair Lobby.
Thank you. I just want to point out that in looking at this particular report and looking at Washington Metro's report, the headline on ours is our summary that staff provided: a station is closed 3 times due to reports of smoke. So to me, opening and closing a station 3 times for the same incident is basically indicative of communications, coordinations problems. But in looking at the summary that Washington Metro provided, the executive summary on their accident report, there's no mention of the station being open and closed 3 times. I'm sure somewhere in the report in the back, there's probably information on this, but I was really struck that reading the Washington Metro summary, it looks like pretty clean response. Then when we look at the WMSC summary that's got all the information in it, the fact that they opened and closed the station 3 times shows that this response was not as clean as it should be. And I just think that's something that Washington Metro should be looking at. They should be including all the information in their summaries and in the reports to make sure that they get to all the issues that may be that may have led to this less than stellar response. Thank you.
And Chair Commissioner Rouse has his hand raised.
Yes, Commissioner Rouse, please.
Yes, thanks. Quick on this one, I think this ties back to what you were mentioning in terms of the incident response structure. That cap, was that in place before this incident took place, or is that something that came out of this? Does anyone know what the status of or how that came about?
Commissioner House, I will ask Ashley Rhodes to respond to the specifics of where the cap remains presently, but the cap that you are referring to on the incident management framework arose out of the last emergency management and fire life safety audit, which we conducted in 2021 and published the report in 2022. So the cap predates this event.
That was my main question, is just trying to get a sense of timing on when that came into place, because I do think it's certainly some issues there in terms of hierarchy and chain of command and incidents that need to be buffed and polished there, because that certainly shows it. And status wise, it would be good to know, but I don't need to know it right at this moment. That's okay. I am curious though, from the aspect of this particular incident, I know it noted that my favorite person, the Buttons rail train controller, was the one that authorized or requested the fans. Who is in charge of making that decision, Mr. Quickly? Could you elaborate on how that decision's made, and is it that person's role? Is it the rail traffic controller's role? Is it somebody else's role to make that decision?
Make the decision to turn the fans on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a standard operating procedure. Anytime there's a report of smoke or fire, that fans are activated. So they have a playbook. They used to be the RTCs were responsible for turning those on. Now they call the fan desk to have and give them a chain marker or station platform of where the smoke is. And those individuals at the fan desk have the playbook. They can open up the playbook and configure the fans based off, where the smoke is coming from, where the customers are at, where the train's at. There's a lot of things that go into it. So any report of fire or smoke, fans are activated underground.
That was key to that. Thank you for that. I was trying to understand, because I know that's been discussed a lot in the past in terms of separation of duties to make sure we're not overloading traffic controllers with all these other emergency situations, right? And having that been done and making sure people are following the procedures and not just leaving the binder there and doing what they typically do. So hopefully they're following that. But that clears that up. So I think that's important to make sure there's a separation of responsibilities so we're not overloading in emergency situations like that. Even minor incidents, smoke is serious, and getting it prevented in the right way is critical. In some cases, an art more than a science, depending on how much information you have at the time. So, thank you.
Right. Yep.
Thank you for that question. I have a question, which is what is meant by a quote stud bolt with a negative return? What does that mean?
Oh, I don't know if we have anyone here that can answer that question for us, Chair Hart. Any volunteers?
I would say that it's basically an electrical anomaly that occurs when a stud bolt, which is supporting or holding the bracket and the insulator that support the third rail, it's an inappropriate electrical pathway that's been created that is allowing electrical energy to run in a place where it's undesired, and that can lead to arcing, smoking, and fire. And so it needs to be resolved. And usually the short-term resolution is literally to remove the component. Sometimes a careful adjustment with a sledgehammer is needed to accomplish that.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments regarding Whiskey 0342 before Mr. Quigley moves on to 343?
I see no more hands.
Okay, please, Mr. Quigley.
All right, investigation Whiskey 0343 relates to an evacuation for life safety reasons event that occurred at Stadium Armory Station on February 19th, 2024. This event involved an explosion in an AC switchgear room, which caused a power outage, smoke in the station, and a contractor injury. The crew of contractors were removing de-energized cables from an uninterruptible power supply, or UPS, in the AC switchgear room 104. The crew, which included 3 electrical personnel and a supervisor, was escorted by WMATA Department of Power employees. During the work, the supervisor briefly left the station to retrieve supplies from their vehicle, leaving the crew to continue cable pulling operations. While a contractor was positioned on an approved wooden A-frame ladder pulling cables, an explosion occurred in the switchgear panel adjacent to the UPS. The explosion caused the worker to jump from the ladder to avoid the sparks, resulting in a fractured ankle. The crew immediately evacuated the room, and the WMATA Power escort reported the incident to the power desk. The explosion briefly disrupted power at Stadium Armory Station, activating the backup generator. Train 610 reported a power outage on track 1 and 2 and within the station itself. Shortly after, train 907 reported smoke in the tunnel on track 1. The Maintenance Operations Center activated fans, and emergency responders, including the District of Columbia Fire and EMS, Metro Transit Police Department, and WMATA personnel were dispatched to the scene. Unified command was established. The injured contractor was transported for medical evaluation. The probable cause of the explosion was identified as an inadvertent pressure applied to the side of the switchgear panel, which caused contact with the energized components within the bus bar, resulting in a direct arc. The switchgear had not been de-energized as it was not within the scope of the contractor's work. Damage to the equipment included the switchgear panel, switchboard, and breaker. Metro Rail developed and distributed a lessons learned document for escorts and contractors' inspection of gear switches and similar equipment to reduce the likelihood of personnel and/or equipment contacting energized equipment. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions on any of these events? Any further questions on any of these events for Mr. Quigley?
Yes, the vice chair has his hand raised.
Yes, Vice Chair Lobby, please.
Yeah, Mr. Quigley, I was looking at the pictures in the report, and there was apparently a footprint. And this is a vertical panel, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so it was almost like there was a footprint on it because somebody was bracing against the panel while they're pulling these cables. Is that essentially what happened, or is there another reason he had his foot on the side of the panel? Do we know?
I don't think we know, sir. I don't believe. I don't think it ever came up, so it'd be hard to tell if that was from this event or something else. It would make sense if it was this event, like you were saying, bracing themselves. But
Yeah, I just noted the picture with the footprint on the side, similar to this picture we have here.
Mhm.
There was a big footprint on the side where somebody had braced themselves. One other question is, when they're doing this type of work, is the future process that they de-energize some of this other equipment that's in the area, even if it's not being worked on? Is that what they've decided, or are they going a different direction?
No, I believe they were just, the lesson learned was reminding, the individuals of what could happen and making sure that their gear and their person are away from anything that's not being energized.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lobby. Any other questions for Mr. Quigley?
Commissioner Conklin has his hand raised.
Yes, please.
I wanted to go back to the statement you made at the beginning about the Glenmont misdirection, train misdirection.
Mhm.
Did you have any more information about the circumstances there? Just given our previous discussion on automated train operation, it sounded like a highly suspicious event.
Yeah, so during the event, the train still had ATP, so you had ATP protection. The train would have lost speed commands after it crossed over into that interlocking onto the platform. They would have lost speed commands. It's more so of a kind of an inconvenience. Why would you want a train kind of routed on top of another one? Because that train that was already occupying the platform was getting ready to leave to go back out, head to Shady Grove in revenue service. So
So that direction of the train to that platform, was that a manual switching activity, or is that a automatic activity?
it's an automatic activity. So currently, the automatic signals are turned off at Glenmont while they continue to investigate.
But the switch positioning is automatic?
Yeah, so the signals there's multiple signals along the system that are automatic signals. So the automatic reads the destination code from the train, and depending on where the destination is, it throws the switch to the correct route, instead of doing the manual operation. So the signal will say, hey, I want you to go in reverse because I'm going to send the train crossing over here based off their destination code or where they're headed. So
But I hadn't got to the point of triggering a fault in the ATP system that would have stopped.
Correct. Yeah, we've had something kind of similar. No, I don't want to say we've had something similar, but the ATP had stopped the trains, from each other at the same location. But again, the point is the automatic should have set the route straight through to the open platform. There's different modes at the terminal at the end of the lines, terminal modes that they can select. If I want the train to always cross over, if I want the train to come straight through all the time, or if I wanted to just pick the open track. So terminal mode was on 3, which means the automatic signal would pick the open track. But still looking into it. Yeah.
This investigation is still ongoing, but it wasn't an issue with ATP.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like I said, if that train would have taken that route that the automatic had set, as soon as it kind of got into the middle of the interlocking, it would have lost speed commands and had nowhere to go because of the occupancy of the other train. So nothing wrong with the ATP or track service.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. Quigley?
I see no other hands.
Thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Seeing none, Mr. Walker, would you please present the next report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0350 relates to a roadway worker protection violation incident that occurred during a full-scale exercise at Benning Road Station on April 27, 2024, identified by WMSC personnel observing the exercise. The event included critical violations of roadway worker protection protocols stemming from non-compliance and inadequate oversight. The exercise, conducted by WMATA's Office of Video Consequence Management in partnership with DC Fire and EMS Services, Emergency Medical Services, simulated a fire and a person struck by a train. The exercise required personnel from WMATA's Office of Track and Structure to enter the roadway and install safety equipment, including shunts, mats, lights, to establish working limits for the exercise. On the day of the exercise, the employee in charge and their crew bypassed Mobile Command, which was located at the D&G junction, and reported directly to Benning Road Station. This was in direct violation of Metrorail's policy, which requires all personnel to attend a roadway job safety briefing at Mobile Command before beginning work on the roadway, beginning any work on the roadway. Although the employee in charge attended the general safety briefing for the exercise, they failed to attend the required roadway job safety briefing. Furthermore, the employee in charge completed the required roadway job safety briefing form, but did not conduct the briefing with their crew. Instead, they delegated this responsibility to another crew member who failed to follow proper procedures. The work crew also did not sign the roadway job safety briefing form, a clear violation of WMATA policy, yet the employee in charge signed off on the form as if the briefing had occurred. Mobile Command, without verifying that the employee in charge had attended the mandatory briefing, granted permission for the crew to enter the roadway. The employee in charge and one crew member entered the roadway at the Benning Road Station to set up safety equipment, unaware of the risk posed by these procedural lapses. An investigative review showed inaccuracies in the documentation, including errors in the Mobile Command safety briefing script and the rail service adjustment log. This incident demonstrates a pattern of noncompliance by the employee in charge, who admitted in an interview that they had previously set up safety equipment without conducting the required safety briefing. It also highlights inconsistencies in RWP procedures during shutdowns, which sometimes contradicts the Metrorail operating rulebook, creating confusion and unsafe practices. The WMSC subject matter expert identified the potential RWP violation and reported it to WMATA officials at the exercise. A formal investigation confirmed these violations and attributed the incident to a lack of awareness and procedural compliance by the employee in charge. Contributing factors included Mobile Command's failure to ensure all personnel attended the mandatory safety briefing before granting roadway access. As a result, WMATA implemented several corrective actions, including reviewing and revising all briefing scripts for accuracy, ensuring the roadway job safety briefing form is included in all briefing materials, rewriting the SOP or standard operating procedure for Mobile Command to clarify roles and procedures, and providing refresher RWP training for the employee in charge. Additionally, corrective action C0268 is being developed to address broader issues identified in the 2024 RWP audit, including insufficient training and supervisory oversight under Mobile Command operations. Thank you, Chair Hart. This completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Walker regarding this event?
I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Seeing none. Ms. Keyrose, would you please present the next reports?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0351 relates to a red signal overrun event involving Prime Mover 39 while it was traveling to Brentwood Rail Yard for inspection on April 11th, 2024. The radio rail traffic controller granted the equipment operator a PM39 an absolute block, instructing them to stop no closer than 10 feet of signal Bravo 9906, which displayed a red aspect. The operator was directed to contact the interlocking operator at Brentwood Control Tower for permission to enter the yard and to notify the rail traffic controller once they cleared the main line. These instructions were repeated 6 times, 3 of which were at the operator's request and were confirmed through the required repeat back process. Despite these clear instructions, the Button Rail Traffic Controller observed on the Advanced Information Management System, or AIMS, that PM39 had passed signal Bravo 9906 and was now holding at signal Bravo 9916, indicating the operator had overrun the red signal. The Brentwood interlocking operator was immediately notified and instructed the equipment operator to hold their position. The radio RTC requested the operator inspect PM39 under foul time protection to ensure there was no damage. Subsequent inspections confirmed no damage to the track unit, switches, or interlocking infrastructure. The investigation identified the equipment operator's lack of situational awareness and unfamiliarity with the red line as a primary cause of the incident.
Signal Bravo 9906, unlike most signals in the system, is positioned on the left side of the track. Although there is signage at the ACAR marker at Nomagaidet Station and other warning sign at chain marker Bravo 114 to alert operators to this deviation, the equipment operator did not notice these indicators. Contributing factors included the operator's failure to stop as instructed. During the investigation, the operator admitted they did not have their map book with them because they were not expecting to operate that day and felt rushed to clear the track. Following the incident, the equipment operator was removed from service for post-incident toxicology testing. A relief operator transported PM39 to Brentwood Rail Yard for storage and further inspection. No injuries or damage resulted from this event. This incident underscores the importance of territory familiarization training, adherence to operational protocols, and effective communication to prevent similar occurrences. I'll pause for questions on that one.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Whiskey 0351?
Commissioner Rouse has his hand raised.
Yes, please, Commissioner Rouse.
Yes, just on this one in particular, just curious, I'm assuming, is there a difference between the training and requirements for revenue vehicle operations versus work vehicles like this?
Yes, their training is different. But for the CAP that is for the familiarization training, it would be for train operators and equipment operators.
Okay. And they should have, and like I said, they should have had some form of information about the track if they just didn't happen to have it that day. Because I do understand it's difficult when revenue vehicles very different from maintenance away work. So I'm wondering if the right controls are in place and expectations for these non-revenue moves where you could have contracted operators or somebody else coming on property who may not have the ability to be as familiar with the system. That seems to be a key challenge there is how do you get that information to them so that they can be aware of where they are and their familiarization with the territory if they're not out there every day like a revenue operator would be. And I think some of those supplemental pieces of information are probably key to that, but if they don't have it, it's not going to help them, obviously. So I'm just peeling back some of the contributing factors here, right? Certainly, we've talked about certification and training and territorial familiarization. It goes without saying it's absolutely critical to making sure people don't lose situational or have less of a probability to lose situational awareness when they're out there. But in this case in particular, as we talk about MOW equipment and other non-revenue equipment, I'm wondering if there's a different challenge there too that may not be quite as resolved by just territorial familiarization.
I would just point out, although maybe not directly responsive, that we conduct as part of our triennial cycle an RMM audit, and in that audit we traditionally look at a variety of operational aspects of rail maintenance machine operation, and that would include certainly operator familiarity with the equipment, the workplace, the roadway, as well as characteristics of the equipment itself.
Okay, yeah, and I guess these are all, does anyone know, primarily WMATA employees that operate their roadway worker machinery?
Yes.
So there's at least some control over it versus if you're bringing in third-party contractors to do work.
There are some contractors, but it's usually, that would just be in a shutdown area, not in this kind of a transport. But yeah, like the report says, this operator knew they should have had their map with them, their map book, and they weren't expecting to operate that day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to tease out some of the peculiarities of this type of scenario because I don't, it is a little bit different than when we talk revenue operations on a regular basis. Thanks.
Thank you for those questions. Any further questions for Ms. Key Rose?
I see no more hands.
Okay, thank you. Would you, Ms. Key Rose, Whiskey 0352, please?
Investigation Whiskey 0352 relates to another red signal overrun on April 19th, 2024 at Anacostia Station. Prior to the event, the train operator reported a loss of speed commands while approaching the center of the platform at Anacostia Station. The radio rail traffic controller granted the operator a permissive block to berth the train on the platform at the 8-car marker, advising that signal Foxtrot 0608 displayed a red aspect. The train operator repeated back the instructions as required by Metrorail rules. The train operator then entered stop and proceed, a mode that enables train operators to take a point of power in the absence of speed commands. Stop and proceed mode does not reset after a door operation until the train gets speed commands. After the train operator serviced the station, the mode remained active, allowing the train operator to continue on despite the red signal and contrary to the direction provided by the rail traffic controller. 2 minutes later, the rail traffic controller identified an alarm on their AIM screen and asked if the train operator overran the red signal. The train operator confirmed that they overran the red signal. This created a near miss of a head-on collision with another train that reverse ends outside the station platform limits on the same track and had just crossed over to the opposite track as the train operator of train 528 overran the red signal. Train service was suspended between Navy Yard Station and Congress Heights Station. After notifying the rail traffic controller that 2 to 3 cars were still on the platform, the train operator was instructed to walk passengers through the train to exit onto the station's platform. WMATA personnel responded to the station and inspections confirmed that the train had passed switch 1 Bravo. There was no damage to the switches or train. An investigation determined the probable cause of the red signal overrun to be the train operator's lack of situational awareness and failure to follow instructions provided by the rail traffic controller. A contributing factor was the stop and proceed mode, which remained active after servicing the station and allowed the train to continue without proper safeguards. The train operator was removed from service for post-incident testing and was sent for re-instruction training. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Key Rose. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Key Rose regarding this event?
Vice Chair Lobby's raised his hand.
Yes, Vice Chair Lobby, please.
Thank you for that presentation. I note that in the summaries for this particular accident that in 2023 we had 9 red signal overruns, and then as of November 15th, 2024, we've had 14 such events. Have we had any additional red signal overruns since November 15th?
I would have to check. I don't know off the top of my head.
No.
Okay. And do we have any idea why we're experiencing even more red signal overruns this year than we did last year? And I know that familiarity is an issue, but I thought that we were addressing that we should at least be making some progress, as far as making sure that operators have more familiarity with the areas they're operating in. But does anybody have any idea why we're seeing this increase?
So for the familiarization training, they did have a pilot program, and we will be meeting with WMATA soon to discuss the results of that pilot program, which I think just looking at the numbers and your comment can show it hasn't done a great job.
So we think familiarity is still the big issue?
That's definitely part of it. The stop and proceed mode, what we've seen in a lot of red signal overruns is the train operator has to enter stop and proceed mode in order to properly berth the train on the platform. And then after they service the station, they get back in the seat and just take a point of power and don't check their lunar rail alignment first. But there is nothing else preventing them from taking the point of power, which stop and proceed is designed to do, but it does not reset after a door operation.
But this is nothing new compared to 2023, right? I mean, there hasn't been a major change in stop and proceed procedure since then. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I guess we either see the stop and proceed getting worse or something else is affecting the responses that the operators are making. I don't know. Well, I think this is an area, especially when we have numbers, and these aren't big numbers, 9 versus 14, but percentage-wise, they're big numbers. I think when we have information like this, we need to dig a little bit deeper and see if we can identify, what's driving some of these statistics in the wrong direction.
And I would just point out, as you and your fellow commissioners have expressed, our plan is to add to public meetings in the coming year an opportunity to review trends, safety metrics, and related data, and that will also give us an opportunity to dig into issues like this a little deeper. So we'll take that as a homework assignment, really one of many data-related homework assignments to explore and report out on in the coming year.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Ms. Key-Rose on this event?
No other hands, Chair.
Okay, thank you. In that case, Ms. Key-Rose, would you please present the final reports?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0353 relates to a derailment involving high rail vehicle 9042, which derailed near Stadium Armory Station on December 16th, 2023. This incident occurred within a shutdown area established for fiber optics cable installation. High rail vehicle 9042 was staged at Stadium Army platform on track 1 and departed at approximately 8:05 a.m. traveling outbound. 7 minutes later, the vehicle derailed near chain marker Delta 1 215. Both the equipment operator, a contractor, and the pilot, a WMATA employee, reported hearing an unusual noise and feeling abnormal movement. Upon inspection, it was discovered that the rear wheels of the vehicle had derailed. The roadway worker in charge, or RIC, delayed reporting the incident to the control center approximately 40 minutes after the derailment occurred. Personnel from the Office of Track and Structures, Vehicle Program Services, Car Track Equipment Maintenance, and Capital Delivery were dispatched to assess the situation. The inspection revealed minor infrastructure damage, including scratches to the running rails, third rail cover boards, and insulators, some of which had been dislodged. High rail vehicle 9042 was re-railed and moved under its own power to a staging location for temporary storage before being towed and removed from the roadway for further inspection at New Carrollton Rail Yard. No injuries were reported during this event. The investigation determined the derailment was caused by unlocked rail gear, which caused the vehicle to rely solely on hydraulic cylinders to maintain wheel-to-rail contact. The equipment operator stated during an investigative interview that a full pre-trip inspection required by Metro Rail policy was not performed. The operator cited limited access to the vehicle, which was parked within the station's platform limits with a prime mover position behind it, as a reason for not conducting the inspection. This failure highlights noncompliance with operational rules and procedures. Metro Rail developed an after-action report outlining several lessons learned to prevent similar incidents in the future. These include the importance of performing thorough pre-trip inspections and ensuring all switches and locking mechanisms are secure. And I can pause for questions on that one.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Key-Rose regarding this event?
I don't see any hands, Chair.
Thank you.
All right.
Please
Good.
go ahead, please proceed.
The final investigation being considered today is Investigation Whiskey 0354, which relates to a serious injury event at College Park Station involving a rail vehicle operator who sustained a left arm fracture. After arriving at Greenbelt Station, the rail vehicle operator of train 512 was instructed by a terminal supervisor to remain aboard while the supervisor took over train operation to help return the train to schedule. The plan was for the operator to resume control at College Park Station. While the supervisor operated train 512, the rail vehicle operator joined the supervisor in the operator's cab. as the train approached College Park Station on track 2. At the same time, train 517 was stopped on track 1 at College Park Station. The supervisor intended to board the train on track 1 to return to Greenbelt Terminal and wanted the train to hold. In an effort to assist, the rail vehicle operator leaned out of the cab window to gesture to the operator of train 517 to hold. During this action, the operator's arm struck a camera pole located at the 8-car marker on the north end of the platform. Immediately following the collision, the rail vehicle operator reported their injury to the supervisor. The supervisor instructed the injured operator to disembark the train and report the incident to the College Park station manager. Emergency services were requested through the control center. Prince George's County Fire Department personnel arrived and transported the operator to a local hospital for treatment. In response to the incident, the terminal supervisor and rail vehicle operator received re-instruction training to address noncompliance with operational rules. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Key Rose. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners regarding any of these events from Ms. Key Rose?
I see no hands, Chair.
Thank you. We have completed the review of the events. Now it's time to look at voting on them. So is there a motion to adopt the investigation reports that have just been presented, which is Whiskey 0341, 343, 350, and 354?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Bob, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Chair, the vote is 6 yeas and 0 nays. So the investigative reports W0341, we have a break in the middle, but leading to W0354 are adopted.
Thank you. We will now move on to resolutions and other actions. Today, we are considering the annual independent financial audit for WMSC fiscal year 2024. That fiscal year covered July 1st, 2023 through June 30, 2024. I would like to thank Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke for her role in this process, along with the Finance and Operations Committee, and I would like to thank our staff for their hard work, both on an everyday basis to ensure that we are meeting all the requirements and as part of the audit process to provide the necessary information and documentation. We are proud of our staff for carrying out their work in such a professional and efficient manner and for another clean audit. Commissioners have had a chance to review the audit, and now I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke.
Thank you, Chair Hart. As you noted, the Finance and Operations Committee has engaged with the independent financial auditors. Finance and Operations Committee received a briefing from the independent auditors last month, and all commissioners met with auditors earlier today. We're very proud of our staff and our commissioners for this audit that includes an unmodified or clean opinion on the WMSC's financial statements through the fiscal year that ended June 2024. The auditors concluded that the financial statements present the financial position of the WMSC fairly in conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. This annual audit is required by the WMSC Compact and, upon adoption, will be transmitted by staff as required by the Compact. The Finance and Operations Committee provided oversight of this independent audit and recommends adoption of the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrar Dyke. Are there any questions? Are there from any of the other commissioners or any discussion regarding this audit report?
I see no hands.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Silba, seeing none, is there a motion to adopt resolution R2024-09, which adopts SB and Company's fiscal year 2024 independent audit? Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
So Chair, the vote is 6 yeas to 0 nays. So the motion to adopt resolution 2409 which also adopts the S&B and Company fiscal year 2024 independent audit passes.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. Next, we will consider Metro Rail's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. As you heard Dr. Meyer say earlier today, this plan lays out Metro Rail's commitment to a strong safety culture that reaches everyone from frontline workers and supervisors to executive management. Metro Rail is required to review and update this plan at least annually. WMSC oversees Metro Rail's implementation of this plan and is required to review any updates that Metro Rail makes. Dr. Meyer, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair Hart. As you mentioned earlier today, this is Metro Rail's annual revision to its Agency Safety Plan, or PTASP. The WMATA PTASP includes sections related to Metro Bus and Metro Access. However, of course, our oversight is specific to the sections that are applicable in some way to Metro Rail because we do not oversee Metro Bus or Metro Access. Each revision of Metro Rail's Agency Safety Plan must meet WMSC requirements and federal regulations. So to ensure that Metro Rail's changes must be approved by the WMSC, and therefore we're presenting them for your vote today. To provide for a productive process, our program standard requires that Metro Rail obtain conditional approval from WMSC staff prior to moving the revision through to its final approval process today. Metro Rail steps include approval by Metro Rail's Joint Labor and Management Safety Committee, approval by Metro Rail's accountable executive, the general manager, and approval by the WMATA Board of Directors. To highlight some of the other work that has occurred, the WMSC staff reviewed and provided feedback on drafts of the Agency Safety Plan revision for compliance with our program standard and federal regulation. And this led up to the final version that's before you today. In accordance with our program standard, the staff transmitted conditional approval to Metro earlier this year. The WMATA board voted to approve this Agency Safety Plan revision on October 10, 2024. The Agency Safety Plan objectives are safety, accountability, increased use of data, and a clear commitment that every employee, from the frontline worker to the supervisor to managers to executive leaders, are accountable for upholding the commitments to safety. And this also includes clear direction on how each person at Metro Rail can meet this safety responsibility. The WMSC is required to review and oversee Metro Rail's Agency Safety Plan once approved. The WMSC ensures Metro Rail is meeting the requirements of its Agency Safety Plan through our audits, inspections, and other oversight activities. The WMSC enforces this when needed through the issuance of findings requiring Metro Rail to correct safety issues and through other enforcement tools such as orders. Metro Rail's other documented policies and procedures are implemented under the umbrella of the Agency Safety Plan, which is, of course, a high-level document. Overseeing and checking Metro Rail's implementation of these documented safety commitments is a basic element of our program standard and a basic responsibility specified in the WMSC Compact. When Metro Rail makes safety commitments, we expect Metro Rail to follow those commitments, and if the WMSC identifies that Metro Rail is not following its safety commitments, then we take the necessary action to correct that issue. As I mentioned, as the state safety oversight agency for Metro Rail, the WMSC approves Metro Rail's agency safety plan before it can be implemented. A vote to approve that plan today means that the commissioners concur with the WMSC's staff assessment that the plan complies with federal law and regulation, that the plan has sufficiently explicit processes for safety risk management with adequate means of risk mitigation. The plan includes a process and timeline for annual reviews and updates, that the plan includes a comprehensive staff training program for operations personnel directly responsible for safety, that it identifies an adequately trained safety officer who reports to the general manager, that the plan includes adequate methods to be executed, and that the plan has been approved by the WMATA Board of Directors. So with your permission, Mr. Raddick can now describe briefly how this revised agency safety plan differs from the prior year's approved plan. Mr. Raddick.
So this is Metro's fifth revision of this document. So it is now, the changes are very minor. The most notable changes are some revision to the safety performance targets in section 1.4. And this was adding the provision for major events, which is defined by the National Transit Database. It also included a collision rate and a pedestrian collision rate and vehicle collision rate as part of that. And it also added some information on assaults that meet the National Transit Database threshold. A couple other notable points, section 2.2 in the employee safety reporting program, that has always been in the agency safety plan, but it now more clearly outlines the sort of 5 categories of reporting. That would be the hazard submission form, reports to safety committees, the safety hotline, the Office of Safety of Customer Service, and then of course the Office of Inspector General is also noted. And the last major point to note is in section 4.14, which has to do with information monitoring. This now expressly mentions, referring to the program standard, provided that that WMATA will and does provide WMSC direct electronic system data access. So those are the major updates, but overall it's just a few word changes here and there throughout the document, but those are the most significant updates.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Raddick. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Raddick or for Dr. Meyer regarding the report?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Conklin has raised his hand.
Yes, please, Commissioner Conklin.
Thanks. I think this is probably for Mr. Raddick. Are there any changes in this document that are relevant to the ongoing dispute about occupational health and safety and readiness?
Not so. Most importantly, it still includes occupational safety and health provisions. It still includes industrial hygiene, fitness for duty. So there were some changes to those sections, but nothing of note.
Okay, thank you.
So can I take it the reason for these annual changes is to keep the operating document up to date with the real world experience as we gather it over time?
It's to keep it current, and it's also required by regulation and our program standard to review and, if necessary, update it each year.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Raddick or for Dr. Meyer?
I see no other hands, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silbos. Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt Resolution R-2024-10, approving the WMATA Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan revision effective December 31st, 2024? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to adopt.
Commissioner Frardike, thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you for the second. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Yay.
Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
So Chair, the vote is 6 yeas and 0 nays. The motion to adopt Resolution 2024-10, which approves the WMATA's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan that is effective December 31st, 2024, passes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Silbaugh. Is there any other business that the commissioners would like to address today? Hearing none, that completes our meeting for today. As a reminder, you can always report any concerns through our website, wmsc.gov, through our social media channels, or by email. I would like to thank Dr. Meyer and his staff for their ongoing efforts to continuously improve the safety of Metro Rail, and I would like to thank them for their presentations for this meeting. I would also like to thank the commissioners for being so engaged in the process in general and in this meeting in particular. And finally, I would like to thank the members of the public who attended this meeting. We appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Next time, we expect to be a meeting on our next public meeting on January 28, 2025. Meanwhile, the WMSC wishes all a safe winter holiday season and prosperous new year. Hearing no further business, the meeting is hereby adjourned.